Centralia, Pennsylvania. Centralia was once a small mining town in Pennsylvania with around 1,000 residents. In 1962, a fire started in an abandoned strip mine near the town's landfill, a fire that spread into the underground coal seams. Authorities tried to extinguish it using sand, clay barriers, and even trenches, but nothing worked. The fire kept burning, hidden underground, releasing dangerous levels of carbon monoxide into the air and heating the ground to over 100 degrees Celsius in places. By the early 1980s, people began experiencing health issues, and a 12-year-old boy nearly fell into a smoking sinkhole that suddenly opened beneath him. The U.S. government intervened, spending over $40 million to relocate most of the town's population. By the 1990s, Centralia was nearly empty. The post office closed in 2002, and the zip code was officially removed. Shockingly, the fire is still burning underground today, more than 60 years later. Only a handful of residents remain, surrounded by cracked roads, collapsing homes, and warning signs. The government legally seized the land under eminent domain, but those who stayed refused to leave. Hashima Island, Japan. Also known as Gunkanjima, or Battleship Island due to its shape, Hashima was once a symbol of rapid industrial growth in Japan. The island was developed in the late 19th century after undersea coal deposits were discovered nearby. Mitsubishi bought the island in 1890 and built up the infrastructure, eventually constructing massive concrete apartment complexes to house thousands of workers. By the 1950s, over 5,000 people lived on the island, making it the most densely populated place in the world at the time. There were schools, hospitals, restaurants, and even rooftop gardens, all stacked vertically in a space only 16 acres wide. But living conditions were harsh. Typhoons, limited open space, and intense labor conditions made daily life difficult. In 1974, the coal ran out, and the island was shut down almost overnight. Residents were evacuated, and buildings were left to decay. For decades, the island remained completely closed to the public. Today, it's an eerie concrete ruin surrounded by ocean, with collapsing rooftops, empty stairwells, and broken windows. It was featured as a villain's lair in the James Bond film Skyfall, but real visits are rare due to safety concerns and structural instability. Pripyat, Ukraine. Pripyat was established in 1970 as a model Soviet city for workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. By 1986, it had nearly 50,000 residents, most of whom were young families. It had hospitals, cultural centers, schools, and even a new amusement park scheduled to open on May 1st, just days after disaster struck. On April 26th, reactor number 4 exploded during a safety test gone wrong. The explosion released enormous amounts of radioactive material into the atmosphere. At first, Soviet officials withheld the truth. Residents were told everything was under control, but radiation levels were already dangerously high. 36 hours after the explosion, buses began arriving to evacuate the entire city. People were told they would be gone for just a few days. They left behind clothing, food, pets, everything. They never returned. Today, Pripyat is one of the most iconic ghost towns in the world. Radiation hotspots still make certain areas unsafe. Rotting furniture, Soviet-era posters, and children's toys still sit exactly where they were in 1986. Oradour-sur-Glane, France. On June 10, 1944, 4 days after D-Day, German soldiers entered the small French village of Oradour-sur-Glane. They rounded up the population, 642 men, women, and children, under the pretense of checking identity documents. What followed was one of the worst massacres on French soil during World War II. The men were shot in barns. The women and children were herded into a church and burned alive. The village was then looted and set on fire. Almost no one survived. After the war, Charles de Gaulle ordered that the village never be rebuilt. Instead, it would stand as a memorial. A new town was constructed nearby, but the ruins of the original Oradour remain preserved. Walking through the site today, you'll see rusted baby carriages, melted bells, collapsed homes, and charred remnants of daily life, exactly as they were left in 1944. Kolmanskop, Namibia. Kolmanskop was once one of the richest towns in southern Africa. Founded in the early 1900s after diamonds were discovered in the region, it attracted German settlers and fortune seekers. It quickly developed all the amenities of a European town: a hospital, theater, school, gymnasium, casino, and even an ice-making plant, all in the middle of the desert. Miners made enormous profits, with reports of diamonds being picked off the ground by hand, but the success was short-lived. By the 1920s, richer diamond deposits were found further south. The town began to decline rapidly. By the 1950s, it was completely abandoned. Over time, the desert began reclaiming Kolmanskop. Wind pushed sand into every open door and window, filling rooms and burying staircases. Today, the town is partially preserved for tourism, but much of it remains untouched, silent and slowly being swallowed by the Namib Desert. Grytviken, South Georgia Island. Grytviken is located on South Georgia Island, a remote, icy island in the South Atlantic. It was founded in 1904 as a whaling station by Norwegian and British companies and became a central hub for commercial whaling in the Southern Hemisphere. During its peak, hundreds of workers processed whale oil in massive industrial facilities. The station had its own church, laboratories, and housing, but it was also a brutal operation. Thousands of whales were slaughtered, and the air was filled with the stench of boiling blubber. By the 1960s, the demand for whale oil dropped, and the practice became increasingly criticized. The station closed in 1966 and everyone left. Today, Grytviken remains abandoned, with rusted harpoon guns, broken vessels, and icy wind howling through the skeletal remains of its past. It's also the final resting place of explorer Ernest Shackleton, whose grave draws occasional visitors from Antarctic cruises. Kadykchan, Russia. Kadykchan was built during Stalin's rule as a mining town in Russia's remote Magadan region. It was constructed largely using forced labor from gulags and existed solely to support nearby coal mining operations. At its height, around 10,000 people lived in the town. Life there was harsh: freezing winters, poor infrastructure, and extreme isolation. In 1996, a mine explosion killed 6 people. Soon after, the government deemed the mine economically unviable and closed it. Residents were relocated with financial incentives, and by 2000, the town was abandoned. What makes Kadykchan unusual is how much was left behind. Televisions, children's drawings, furniture, and even full libraries of Soviet literature remain intact. Snow drifts through broken windows, and silence has replaced the sound of daily life. Helltown, Ohio. Helltown is the nickname given to the former town of Boston, Ohio, located within Cuyahoga Valley National Park. In the 1970s, the U.S. government began buying up homes in the area, saying it was for park expansion. Residents were forced to leave, and buildings were boarded up. But instead of being torn down or developed, the area was simply left abandoned. Over time, rumors began to spread. Locals reported government vehicles patrolling the area, strange animal behavior, and even satanic symbols inside old buildings. Urban legends claimed there were mutant creatures, haunted buses, and hidden research facilities in the forest. While these stories are mostly folklore, the government never gave a clear explanation for why the area was cleared and then sealed off. To this day, parts of the original town remain closed to the public, fueling speculation. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.